Saints fans and Who-Dats from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz. With your host, Bob Rose.
Good evening, New Orleans Saints fans, everybody throughout the Who-Dat Nation, fans of the NFL, and, of course, fans of the Bayou Blitz. I am Bob Rose. I will be one of your hosts for this evening, and we thank you for having us over your airwaves and into your homes again on a Wednesday evening. Joining me, as always, is my record-setting partner in crime, Mr. Kyle Mosley. How are you tonight, Kyle?
Record-setting? Oh. If it's a record to be set, it's probably somewhere. Oh, well, I'm not going to go there. But anyway, yeah, how you doing, Bob?
I'm really good. Really good. As most of our fans and most of the fans of the show knows, I was fortunate enough to be in New Orleans for the weekend, and of course for the game and its festivities on Monday. And for anybody that was there in person, or really even there watching on TV, it was one of those moments where you can say for years to come, yeah, I was there when this happened.
Yeah, man. And I was in the house as well. And Bob, that was one of the most impactful games in my life, as far as being a Saints fan all of my years, all of my almost 52 years. But to have that type of game and the way he was able to break the record was just awesome to witness.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And as we know, for having been fans of this team for so long, there have certainly been many moments throughout Saints history where you can hold your head high and say, I'm a New Orleans Saints fan, and get respect throughout whatever room you're in. But you and I have talked about it with our guests on the show as well over the last few weeks as Drew has approached this record. This is right up there with any of the iconic records in sports that you could mention. Home run record, points record in basketball or hockey, rushing record for the NFL. Drew BREES is the all-time leading NFL passer, and that is staggering when you consider the great quarterbacks that have come and gone through the game over the years and decades and eras. Yes, the game has changed, but this is still a record of longevity and greatness over an extended period of time.
Yeah, extended period of time is correct, but to be able to have this type of record and be able to consistently put up the numbers that he's been able to put up. And I've heard some naysayers like Maurice Jones-Drew and people on the NFL Network say some very idiotic things, in my opinion, about Drew BREES and what he's been able to accomplish. But when you look at what this means to the organization, means to the city, the fans for so long. It's just like when we finally won the Super Bowl, but to have somebody recognized for his achievements on a consistent basis, and a lot of us can argue he still hasn't gotten his full due of respect. It's unlike the love affair that the NFL has for Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. But when you have a guy who's able to put the numbers up, do it faster than Peyton Manning did it, do it with higher percentage of completions than Brett Favre did it, you have to be able to respect what Drew BREES has been able to do. And when Maurice Jones-Drew says, oh, well, he's a pocket passer and he stands there and he's just a pocket passer, I'm thinking, aren't quarterbacks being paid to be in the pocket and pass the ball?
I thought that was what was supposed to happen.
Yes.
But, all we do is talk about the game, so I guess what do we know, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that is one of the most Man, look, that was just not very smart. I'm not going to say the other word, but that wasn't a very smart analysis coming from him. And also to say he doesn't have the wow factor. Oh, my goodness. That is just so crazy to be able to hear these guys trying to articulate, their feelings about somebody, but in essence, you're really putting him down and casting a negative shadow on such a great accomplishment. It should have been, especially from the network, when it comes to them representing the National Football League, it should have been, let's go ahead and memorialize this and talk well of the accomplishment. On tomorrow, you go ahead and pick it apart, but I could not understand that night Maurice Jones-Drew as well as Jones picking it apart the way they did.
Yeah. I mean, it was not only disappointing, but it was enraging. But at the same time, we know as Saints fans and as people who cover the team, we know the lack of respect that not only BREES but the organization itself gets throughout the league, and truthfully, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some others. I said it before. Look, my team has a championship trophy in its trophy case. What do you have, Atlanta Falcons? What do you have, Cleveland Browns? Et cetera. So we can go down the list. And now we can say, hey, does your team have the NFL's all-time leading passer or all-time leading completion, quarterback in completions, or all-time leading quarterback in completion percentage? We can go on and on and on. And we can also continue to hold our head high because unlike Peyton Manning and Brett Favre and some of those other guys, Drew is not limping to the finish line here. He still has a lot of great football left. Everybody who saw the game the other night, this was not only one pass that he threw to get him the record. He went 26 for 29
awesome.
for 363 yards and 3 touchdowns against one of the better defenses in the NFL and under the primetime spotlight. And that wasn't just a one-game aberration. This is what his season has been like so far. He's got a lot of football left.
89.7%. 89.7%. Get that, man. In a football game, in a nationally televised game, he just did it in a classy way. And to be able to have his kids and his wife there, he just represents the organization well. He represents the National Football League well. And, he carries himself with such class. And I have to respect exactly what he's been able to do and accomplish as a football player, but also as a man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the respect and John.
Hey, John.
Oh yeah. I was looking for an opening. Sorry about
I didn't know. No, that's okay. I didn't know you were on with us yet, John. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce you to John Butler, one of my fellow writers over at the Canal Street Chronicles. How are you tonight, John?
How are you, Bob? Kyle, how are you doing, guys?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. I jump on the show, and the first thing I hear is Maurice Jones-Drew. So we're not off to a good start.
Had to hurry up and get it out the way, John.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. It didn't take any of those analysts long to jump jump all over BREES. The moment the record happened. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, it really didn't. But I mean, yeah, and you've covered football and the Saints for a long time too, John. What was your impression of not only Drew breaking the record itself, but the level of play he's still showing us?
It's incredible. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody that you could even compare it to, and short of people that have cut their careers short, like a Barry Sanders or a Megatron or something like that. Somebody that's actually gone the distance and accomplished some of these these achievements that take a lifetime to achieve. I can't think of anybody that went through a record that convincingly and shows no signs of slowing down. So it's fantastic. And then as far as the night, I mean, it was, I was almost in tears. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when you consider how long the Saints went through the doldrums of the NFL and what it took to get where we are, it's hard not to get emotional. Now, I mean, I'm not going to be like that guy they showed on TV. That was that was a little excessive, but no, it's hard not to get caught up in the moment. There's only been two moments in my life that sports has actually made me well up a little bit, and the Saints were involved with one of them. So
yeah, and speaking of emotion, I was just about to say as you were coming on, it looked like Drew himself was almost overcome with the emotion of the moment. I mean, he just, and just like Kyle was pointing out, that he's more than just a great athlete. He's a great human being, and he has done so much for the New Orleans community and really all the surrounding communities. And I'm convinced that he feels the love that the entire region feels for him. Again, not only as a football player, but what he's been able to do for the organization and the region itself. And just to look at him, look at the expression on his face as they stopped the game and were honoring him. It really did look like he was a little bit swept up in the moment as well. Did you guys think the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. And also, if you listen to the video when he went over to his sons and daughter and his wife to tell his boys, hey guys, don't I ever tell you guys you can accomplish anything if you just work hard. And I mean, that's really, really a poignant thing to tell your kids, especially in that type of moment in the atmosphere. It was just a beautiful moment and exemplified the type of career as well as life he leads.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, the post-game interviews on ESPN, he was actually, you could see in his eyes were completely red and glossed over as he's talking about his family, as he's looking up into the stands during the conversation. So you can tell that, between the support he's got with his family and the support he's got through the community, he definitely felt the love.
I tell you guys what, too. You could feel the atmosphere in the Superdome building up to that moment, so you knew that there was going to be an explosion of emotion when it happened.
Yeah.
But immediately afterward, and John, I don't know if it was evident on TV, so you could certainly educate us to this. But Kyle, I could almost feel almost all the air go out of the dome instantly. And the Redskins, to their credit, they fought back and drove down for a score. Where the Saints had to kind of pick themselves up, after halftime, going into halftime, and say, okay, we can't get caught up in the moment. We still got a football game to win. And I thought that they did an outstanding job of grabbing the momentum back. Did you guys feel the same kind of thing?
Well,
for sure, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, John, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I totally agree. It's one of those games, almost like the post-Katrina, Steve Gleason game, where you could have. It's almost like you could have put the 85 Bears out there on the team, and somehow the Saints would have found their way to a victory. So it seems like as much as Drew wanted to get it done, and as much as Coach Payton, it seemed like the play calling was a little bit more aggressive than in weeks past, and I'm sure that has something to do with Mark Ingram being able to block and everything like that. But it seemed like as much as they wanted to get it done, it seemed like his teammates wanted to do it for him as well. So it seemed like it almost didn't matter who you put out on the field, last night or 2 nights ago rather. The Saints were going to find a way to get the record and to get the win.
Yeah, definitely. And to do it before halftime pretty good, and I kind of sensed the same thing you did sense, Bob. Especially being inside the Superdome, people were relieved. The fans around me were relieved. They were like, "Oh, he did it," and they were happy, and everybody went to go get some beers and everything. So it was like, okay, let's kind of relax a little bit. And then you notice the drive and the fumble with Cam Meredith and everything. So, yeah, and they did respond, and they did come back and say, okay, the game is not over. And that's what I was yelling to them. The game is not over.
Yeah.
Let's continue to play, because I didn't want to see Alex Smith lead a great comeback and ruin the moment. But all in all, man, it's just one of those nights. And I remember Jim Mora Jr. saying the same thing. It's just one of those nights. I mean, what could you do when Gleason blocks the fumble? These guys come back to the dome. There's no way we were going to win, and you just had that feeling from the Redskins. They just knew in their spirit things were just going all the Saints' way that entire night.
Great.
What not that we want to downplay Drew's record, but I thought that these Saints played their most complete game of the season so far. They were an absolute buzzsaw, as many of us thought that they would be in this kind of situation under the primetime lights. But John, we'll start with you. Outside of course, BREES' performance, what were a couple of the things that impressed you the most from New Orleans' performance on Monday night?
There was a lot, and I think it starts with, to me, it seems like seeing both teams play, the Redskins are like a good matchup for the Saints. Mm-hmm. It's just the brand of football that they want to play kind of just caters right into the strengths of the defense. Offensively, obviously, Traquan Smith, with the injury again, he kind of jumps off the page as far as what he was able to do, and he kind of had a rough week. I think it was the week before against the Giants. So it was nice to see him not only bounce back, but have a pretty epic game. Mark Ingram, just his presence being back, and not only doing the blitz pickups, but the screen passes and keeping the defense guessing whenever he's on the field. It's not like any of the other running backs they had aside from Kamara, where you can basically tee up and pin your ears back and go right after the running back, because when Gillislee's coming in or Williams is coming in, it's going to be a run most likely. So obviously Ingram's presence was great, and then on the defensive side of the ball, there was a few standout performances.
Yeah.
The buzz is Marcus Davenport. Obviously,
right.
He looks like he's making mass every week. It's like a different player. So it's really fun to watch him progress and progress really quickly. Justin Hardy did a nice job. In the secondary filling in. So it was nice that actually the whole secondary really kind of held their own. But Sheldon Rankins is the other one. Sheldon Rankins is just turning into an absolute monster on the inside of that defensive line. So those would be my few.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the way the defense played, especially against the run, to only limit these guys to 39 yards, man, the entire night. And I knew the Washington Redskins game plan was to try to give Adrian Peterson the ball as often as possible. But after that first lick that he took out there, I was like, I thought his knee was about to pop out, man, the way he took that lick from PJ. But, I guess what we're seeing, even with the absence of Lattimore, that these guys are growing up a little bit in that secondary. And Crawley didn't have a great game, in my opinion. I don't know what Pro Football Focus is seeing, but I still feel as though we have some limitations from time to time. But what you see from Davenport, oh my goodness. And Brian Baldinger had a great analysis, and I posted it on saintsnews.net, of him calling him the young Too Tall Jones. And he's going to be a monster in this league. And you just see the progression. And John, you're right. And what we are seeing from Marcus Davenport is pretty much what I said early on in the season. Remember, Bob, that I'm waiting to see him at half point of the year, how well he's able to perform half point. Well, he's a little bit ahead of schedule, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. And not only is he making plays and rushing the passer in the pass pocket, like both of you guys pointed out, he's ahead of where I thought he would be at this point against the run. He is looking like one heck of a run defender. I mean, he's not only setting the edge, but he's causing disruption.
Right.
Yeah, and they are, they already have an outstanding run defender at that end with Okafor. So that gives them so much more versatility in what Dennis Allen could do with that defensive line. Especially, he likes to run that NASCAR. They think they still call it the NASCAR package. They did last year when they would move an end or two inside in obvious passing situations. But now if you do that with these guys, it doesn't matter whether you move Cam or Davenport or Okafor on the inside, so that way you can have the other two on the field at the same time. All three of them have been playing against the run outstanding. And both of you pointed out how well Sheldon Rankins is playing. I think I've given him a game ball just about every single week. I mean, he is playing lights out, and teams just can't run the ball against these guys. And as much stink as a lot of us were making, especially early in the season, about being worried about the pass defense, New Orleans is just not giving up any rushing ground whatsoever. And that brings me to one of my keys to the game. I couldn't agree with where you guys went, of course, but Demario Davis, again, had himself in a standout football game. He didn't have the high number of tackles that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, but he rushed the passer well on a couple of blitz attempts. And like you pointed out, John, the Redskins in the past have not been a great matchup at the skill position for players for this Saints defense. And one of those players that would give them fits would be Chris Thompson. And Thompson, he was shut down in the running game, as we mentioned, but he also only had 45 yards out of the backfield pass receiving. And a lot of that is a testimony to Demario Davis and how well he's playing, and it's actually elevated the play of A.J. Klein, too. A.J. Klein is playing some really good football. And those two guys, I'd still like to see a little bit more from Alex Anzalone. And Craig Robertson is like a bull loose in a china shop when they do get him out on the field. So I really like the way this linebacking core as a whole is starting to produce. And I'm with both of you guys. When Lattimore went down, I don't remember whether it was late first or early second with that concussion. I think every single Saints fan was grabbing their seats in worriment about what was going to happen next. But that secondary as a whole, you really got to give them credit because, again, just like last week against the Giants, they kept the play in front of them. They still gave up some completions to Crowder and Richardson, but they did not allow any yards after the catch, and they did not get beat over the top. And as long as this Saints defense can continue to guard against that, it's going to allow that pass rush, Davenport, Rankins, Okafor, and obviously Cam, along with the blitzers, it's going to allow them the time to get to that quarterback, and the result is going to start to, it's going to be an avalanche of turnovers. We saw two the other night, and Alex Smith normally doesn't turn the ball over, but he made two crucial mistakes, and that was largely because he was pressured into them. I thought the Saints played probably their best all-around defensive game of the season.
Yeah. Look, man, I want you guys to look at Von Bell and what he was able to accomplish as well. I was very surprised. When I went back to look at the stat sheet, he only allowed 3 receptions and gave up 36 yards to Davis as well as Reed. I was surprised, and he really played more instinctively this game. And I'm just wondering if, at the beginning of the season, especially the way they had communication errors. If Dennis Allen is, as well as Aaron Glenn, are they allowing them to be more instinctive in how they're able to play and handle some of the support on the back end, especially with Marcus Williams? I think he was thinking a lot too much as well. Sometimes this game has you as a player, you can overanalyze and become paralyzed. So what are they doing differently? Are they, going with their guts? Are they going with what they have studied as well and just using it to their advantage? And I like what I see.
For sure. And then getting back to Demario Davis, I was thinking about this today while I was driving around. Demario Davis, to me this year, it kind of reminds me of the way the Saints have performed. Kind of reminds me of like a baseball rotation. Like you've got a baseball team that's got a good rotation, and then you go into the off season and you get this ace, and now the ace kind of moves everybody down, where now your best linebacker only has to be your second best linebacker, and it kind of just shifts all your talent down one. And now, Demario Davis has become the ace of that unit, and to me, it just enhances everybody else and is starting to make everybody else look better. Not to mention the leadership and everything else he brings, both on the field and off the field. But that's kind of the way I see him as far as that unit.
That's a good point.
What? That's a great comparison.
Yeah, it is. Real good point.
Are either one of you guys concerned? Taylor Stallworth went down about midway through the game. It might have even been the third quarter. He went down. And it looked to be pretty bad. He was in a lot of pain coming off of the field, and I haven't heard Sean Payton say anything to address it yet, nor does he have to, not in a bye week. I think I have been saying and thinking that Taylor has been playing some absolutely stout football, particularly against the run. Are you guys a little bit concerned with the run defense if Taylor Stallworth misses a little bit of time?
Look, the rookie's been doing a great job, and you still have Amniata, you still have Davidson. He played pretty well this past week as well. But, yeah, Taylor Stallworth, I think it's going to help him. We have the bye week, let him heal a little bit. I don't know if it was the shin or just a high ankle sprain or whatever. He got rolled over. Not quite sure. When I was looking on the field, I had my binoculars. I was trying to see what was going on and how he was communicating. But that lower leg, as well as any of those type of injuries, especially from a big man, we're talking about a 300-plus pound guy, that's going to be problematic. So let's see how he's able to heal. If he's not able to go for the Ravens game, hopefully he can be back for the following game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously with the depth, on the interior defensive line, you're not. It's not as concerning as maybe in years past, but if there's anything that we know, being Saints fans, is you definitely need depth at every level. So, we'll have to wait another week to find out the extent of what we're up against. But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly concerned, but not as concerned as I may have been even last year.
Okay. Let's jump. I just looked up at the clock. We're 31 minutes into our show. On a defensive breakdown, we touched upon Drew breaking one of the most hallowed records in sports. And even though we're about to break down what we saw offensively, we still mentioned it before. And none of the three of us mentioned the name Alvin Kamara. And I think, and I mean that in a good way, it's not that Kamara played poorly. It's just for the first time all season, they did not need a heavy contribution from him to have even a chance at victory. Alvin's stat line, he had 6 rushes for 24 yards, and he didn't have a single reception. And again, I'm not pointing the finger saying that that Alvin played poorly. I'm saying that in a glowing term, saying that we are finally getting a significant contribution, not only in the passing game, but John, you touched upon the return of Ingram and what that means, not only to the running attack, but the entire offense on every level. How did you guys feel about the other guy? We'll just call them the other guys. We know what Kamara can do. We know what Michael Thomas can do. And we, of course, know what Mark Ingram can do. How do you guys feel about the other guys on Monday night? And do you think that any or all of them can sustain this going forward?
I mean, as far as the other guys, can they sustain it? I think maybe not to the level that they did on Monday, but I don't think they'll have to. To me, Michael Thomas, he had a good game, but it's nothing that completely jumps off the page at you. And I think that a lot of it is by design, where he's garnering so much attention, and Kamara is garnering so much attention that it almost opens things up for everybody else. Now, the NFL is going to have to make an adjustment to what they saw on Monday night, and when they do that, then you can go back to a heavy dose of Kamara. You can go back to a heavy dose of Michael Thomas. So, to me, it worked out great, because you've seen that the Saints can beat the snot out of somebody and not even use Kamara.
I like that, John. Beat the snot out.
Well, I mean,
look, man, I concur, John. Look, when Drew broke the record with the pass to Tre'Quan Smith, right? Kamara went out to the flat, and he drew the attention of Josh Norman as well as the other cornerback, as well as one of the safeties. So Sean Payton has been utilizing that attention grab that Kamara has garnered, and that left Tre'Quan Smith wide open. If you look at what happened, if Taysom Hill would have handed that ball off on that RPO to Kamara, he would have had a clear path up the gut and running straight down the tunnels in Portrush.
Yep.
So, look, Kamara needed to rest a little bit anyway, right? He's been beat up. If we don't want to admit it, you better admit it. He has done a fine job spelling the absence of Mark Ingram, but what's happening and what this game allowed a lot of NFL defensive coordinators to start looking at is that if Ginn is not out there and you still have Tre'Quan Smith that's out there, we can't double team Michael Thomas like we have been doing the past couple of games. That's why Michael Thomas was limited. A lot of the teams were rolling double coverage over to him because of his record-setting 3 games prior, right? So what's that going to do? It's just going to open up more one-on-one type of situations. And it's like, damn if I do, damn if I don't. So they're going to have to make a decision. Do we focus on Kamara? Oh, hell, we still got Mark Ingram to deal with. Do we focus on Michael Thomas? Hell, we got this young rookie that we're going to deal with. And you're going to see more of him as well down the line. And I remember, Bob, we talked about that as well. If Ginn falters or something happens and this kid starts taking some of his opportunities seriously and capitalizing on them, you're going to see more of a game plan that Sean Payton's going to put in to allow him to contribute more. So, I mean, it's really good for the team as a whole. Less Ingram, less Kamara, was no problem. Less Ted Ginn, we saw it, no problem. So, damn if you do, damn if you don't, if you're a D coordinator.
Yeah, and that's just it. And both of you guys touched on not only the record-breaking deep pass to Smith, but there were numerous other plays as well where the Redskins defense would just follow Kamara. And heck, why wouldn't they? Given what that young man has done through the first year and 4 games of his career, He is a difference maker. We see it each and every single week. So you can't blame the Washington defense for basing their game plan on stopping Alvin Kamara. It was just so thrilling to see these other guys step up, and not only a big game from Traquan, but Josh Hill had a couple of key receptions. Cameron Meredith had a good game. I mean, he had over 70 yards reception in receiving and 5 catches. And like you said, John, it's not like Michael Thomas had a poor game. He still had 4 catches for 74 yards. I think he caught 4 of his 5 targets. And the fact that the Redskins, and I think you're the one, you pointed it out, Kyle, they not only put Josh Norman on him until can't guard Mike got in his head and Norman was benched for a period of time. But they put Josh Norman on him and then still rolled double and a couple of times triple coverage his direction. But hey, defenses are going to continue to game plan against Thomas and Kamara, as they should, because they know that they will for sure get beat if they don't. The key is, and we say it each and every single week, and we set it often last year, if one or both of those young men are contained, these Saints need to be good enough to make plays on their own, separate from what their all-stars are doing. We know Ingram can do it because he's done it the majority of his career. But the fact that, remember that Traquan Smith, Cameron Meredith, this is both of their first years playing with Drew Brees. And irregardless of how much time they practice with him in the off season, all three of us know that when you get into a game situation, it is a little bit different because your quarterback needs to have the kind of trust in you to go to you in key situations. And the more these guys make plays, the stronger Brees' trust is going to be in them. And, he does have trust in Watson, who had himself a pretty solid game as well. He knows Josh Hill, so he knows, what Hill can do in certain situations. And obviously he has the utmost trust in Ingram, Kamara, and Michael Thomas. If he begins to build that rapport with Meredith and with Traquan Smith, guys, the sky's the limit. One of the reasons that I'll use the 2011 Saints for an example, because that was, in my opinion, one of, if not the best offense in National Football League history. One of the reasons for that, they had Jimmy Graham. They had Marcus Colston. They had Darren Sproles. But they also had Ingram, Pierre Thomas. I think Meacham was still on the team by that point. Devery Henderson, Lance Moore. Brees had trust in every single one of those guys. Were they 1,000-yard receivers? No. Were they 1,000-yard rushers? No. But if left alone or given the opportunity, they could come up with a game or two here or there where they'll have 100 yards receiving and a couple of scores, or they'll have 80 yards on the ground and a couple of scores. It was a multifaceted offense, and that's what made them so difficult, really impossible to defend against. And that's the direction that we could see this Saints team going, and with a better offensive line than what they had in 2011, oh, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this much. As far as setting the offense into motion, the Saints offense is always going to be pretty dynamic. And you have young talent in Kamara and Smith and these other guys. And don't forget, Austin Carr, he did a pretty good job picking up a first down for us here or there. Look, I'm not worried about the offense. My concern is always about this defense, man, and the consistency we need to have on defense, especially going into this stretch after the bye. The Ravens, we never beat them in Baltimore. Well, we have as a team back when Aaron Brooks was quarterback, but Sean Payton and Drew Brees hasn't. So those guys need to go into Baltimore and play one of the better games. I think it's a matchup problem for the Ravens more than anything else going against our offense. I just like to see our defense as well as those defensive backs. If Lattimore goes through the concussion protocol well and he's back onto the field, I'm great with it. I don't know, John, and Bob, have you seen Deion Sanders said we should trade for Mr. Peterson, right? And I have his number. I will give him a call. He was a guest on our show before, but it makes you start to think, because even when I was driving home from New Orleans, I started thinking, could this be a good time for the Saints to start making some moves? And I know, sure enough, the defensive backfield would be a plus for them. And a guy like Patrick Peterson, he wants to win a championship. I just don't think he's going to get that same support with the current staff in Phoenix. So it makes a lot of sense, right? But will we see it happen? Doubt it. But what can we do? Because right now, if we are satisfied with the talent that we do have on defense and they're playing well, how much more of a matchup issue can we be able to give our opponents? And we have the Rams and the Eagles to think about, and those guys as well. So we've got to really say, if there's a offer on the table for a guy like Peterson out there, right? Can we take advantage of it, or should we take advantage of it?
Well, and that's actually the direction I was going to take you guys to, for a couple of reasons. Number one, all three of us are writers as well, and we're coming into the bye week, so this is typically the week that we search for kind of outside of the box thinking kind of things, and the NFL trading deadline is at the end of the month. You guys both saw Deion Sanders' comment about Patrick Peterson. While I would love to see him in New Orleans, I personally don't think the Saints would have enough collateral to make that type of move. And again, the reality is we're going to be writing about it because it's a bye week and the trade deadline is around the corner. But the reality, gentlemen, as you know, it would be surprising to see the Saints make any moves, any significant moves. But John, what kind of collateral do you think the Saints do have if they were to make a move? Maybe not on the level of Peterson, but just to bolster, say, a defensive backfield or another center area of the team. What kind of collateral do you see them having?
Let me think about that. Yeah. See, to me, unless it's something huge like a Peterson, I'd almost be reluctant to give away some of our depth, going back to, some of the issues we've had in years past and maybe opportunities that were lost simply because we just didn't have enough depth. And as far as somebody like a Peterson, like you said, I don't know that we have enough to get him. So I'm almost content to go with what we got. You can almost look at Mark Ingram coming back on the offensive side, like it's like a move that you made, between week 4 and week 5, and you picked up a primary back. I'd be reluctant to give away the farm, and to be honest with you, I don't, with no first next year, to give away a second, I trust Jeff Ireland too much to take too many opportunities out of his hands. He's done a fantastic job at the draft, and I don't know that I'd want to give away a first and a second, and so.
Yeah, that's going to be too. That will be too high of a price to pay for someone like Peterson, and to be frank with you, Peterson will be a solid addition to have on the opposite side, complementing Lattimore, right? But to give up any type of first or anything over a third round pick, in my opinion, is going to be detrimental to the team for next year. So it's difficult. We don't really have anyone else on the team that you would say, okay, we can be able to deal without this particular person to be able to get Peterson. Other than Ted Ginn, that's the only thing I can think of as somebody of worth at this time, unless Peterson forces Arizona hand to do something for someone who is a contender right now. If you look at the standings, only the San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons, they're not going to trade with us, and New York Giants and Oakland Raiders are really Colts, are at the bottom of their particular division. So in order to say who's out there, who we could possibly get, maybe somebody from the Raiders. They have some pretty nice cornerbacks, and Sean Payton and Gruden have a pretty nice relationship. But I don't know. I mean, who can we say that would be willing to deal? Probably a fourth or fifth rounder or something to that nature for a future pick. I don't know.
Well, and I was seeing a couple rumblings of you mentioned the Raiders, and forgive me if I mispronounce his first name, but Garyon Conley. He was the cornerback on the opposite side at Ohio State with Marshawn Lattimore.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, Conley.
So
right.
It's not only a known commodity between Coach Gruden and Coach Payton, but those two players know each other too, and as we know. As we've seen firsthand from this secondary already this season, communication is vital on the back end. So that could be an interesting name.
What about I'm sorry. What about the guy for the Giants? Landon, is it Turner or Thomas? Landon, the cornerback.
You don't mean Landon Collins, do you?
Yeah, Landon Collins.
He's one heck of a playmaker. Correct me if I'm wrong, John and Kyle. I think he's more of a safety in a nickel corner than he is, which would be just fine because again he is a playmaker. But I'd put him in that same category with Patrick Peterson as far as probably New Orleans probably wouldn't have enough collateral to go get him, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. The Giants got rid of Eric Flowers, their former first rounder, man.
Yeah.
That was a shock. But, he hasn't been playing up to the standards the past few years for those guys.
Well, guys, when New Orleans made the move for Teddy Bridgewater, what round pick did they surrender? Was it a third?
I think it was a third, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
So, and assuming it was a third for next year, that means the Saints really only have a second-round pick as far as day one or day two of the draft. They only have a second-round pick as things stand now. We, of course, know that things can and usually do change. But here's something for you, and both you mentioned collateral, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. There's a player, and it's been suggested to me, and in the social media sites too, in private messaging. Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson had a solid rookie season, progressed nicely, was playing his best football at the end. He was one of their defensive standouts during the preseason. Take that for what you will. But he hasn't gotten on the field really at all this season. And that's not necessarily a negative check mark against him. It's just we've already talked about how good Cam and Okafor and Davenport are, and they're taking all the snaps as they should. Would you guys move a guy like Trey Hendrickson either to get help now or to get yourself a pick for next year? Would you make that move now?
Go ahead, John.
No, that's a good question. I guess it would depend what you're getting back. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, with the three standouts that we have, you may be able to afford to get away with that. But again, if God forbid something happens throughout the season and you need somebody, he'd be a nice guy to call on. So, yeah, it would have to depend on what you're getting in return. But I mean, if the deal is right, then I would go for it. I mean, obviously with BREES, entering the twilight of his career, I'm sure that the focus is win now, especially coming off the season that they had last year. So,
yeah.
They may be a little quicker to make a decision like that. Say yes to that than I would, because I'll be around long after Breeze. As far as being a Saints fan, but yeah, it would depend on what they get back.
Well, that's intriguing to me. And can the Saints parlay any type of pick in their favor, right? Let's say we do trade him. What can we get back for trade? Mm-hmm. Can we get like a 5th rounder back for him, or I'm thinking that's what I would do, because he is a pretty solid guy to still have in waiting to take the field in case there is an injury, right? So what do? Do you go out to find another defensive end? I think George Johnson, who played for the Saints, he's a free agent again, right? Could you be able to call him up to be able to spell Trey's absence? I don't know, but I don't think right now will be a good time to take that risk to lose somebody who has the potential of Hendrickson, That's just how I see it, unless it's too good of a deal to pass up.
No, I wanted to get both of your thoughts on it, and I agree. With some of the people that have thrown it out there, it is intriguing. I personally, I'm with you guys. I'd probably stay put because we saw what happens to the Saints defensive line as recently as last year when they were bombarded by injuries down the stretch. So you would expect that at some point in time this year that they would need a guy like Trey Hendrickson or one of their depth guys to make a play in a key situation. So I don't know that I mess around with the depth unless you could get a terrific return on it right now. And by that I mean, of course, a player that could help you right now. If you're going to make a move with a guy like Hendrickson or Ted Ginn and a handful of others at positions of strength, but you're only looking at getting draft picks for it, then at that point, I keep them on the roster for the time being, and I make that move in the off season, because a draft pick's going to do you no good now. I would certainly reinvestigate that possibility, dealing from a position of depth in the off season to bolster my draft, but I wouldn't make any moves now. And can really either one of you guys, there's one really big circumstance that comes to my mind, but it'll show my age. Can either one of you guys recall a time where a team has dealt for a player in season and that player was an immediate help to them that season?
I'm sure there's many out there, Bob. Did the Reggie White trade happen mid-season? They helped the Packers that time?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something that came to mind where there was an in-season trade. I think Deion Sanders was more on the off season, but I'm pretty sure there was something I could be able to think about if I haven't been put on the spot. These old brain cells are not working the way they should right now. So, but look, man, if you get somebody, it has to be able to be an impact person, right? Patrick Peterson right now is the only person I can see that can be a compliment and impact the Saints immediately if we needed to do so. I wouldn't give up Hendrickson. We just have too much of a brutal schedule down the line with Baltimore, Minnesota, the Rams, the Bengals, who are playing well, Philadelphia, and, beat up back on those dirty birds again. And then we go to Dallas and tame those little cowgirls. So we got brutal schedule ahead, man. And don't forget, we got Carolina that we're going to be playing twice in 3 weeks. And we both are vying for the division title. It's really going to be critical that we have as many people who are familiar with the system as well as possible. But if we do not make the right moves and we make a mistake in letting somebody like Hendrickson go, I just think that's going to be too too costly down the line, because he still could be able to spell a person in case there's a game or two someone's going to be out.
No, that's a great point. And in case you guys were curious, I could not think of another instance where I mentioned since 1983. And that year, a very good Los Angeles Raiders team and defense made a deal with the New England Patriots, who had their shutdown cornerback named Mike Haynes, was very unhappy in New England. The Raiders dealt for him, and then later that year won the Super Bowl title with probably the best set of cornerbacks that one could think of in recent memory. But that was just my point, that and backed up by you guys. There's not too many players or not too many instances where you can think of in recent years where a team will make a deal for an impact player during the season that's going to help them get to the end goal. So, John, I think you said it earlier when you mentioned that you're content with the pieces that they have now. And Kyle, you and I have mentioned it many times. If you're if you were struggling with your communication, especially in your defensive secondary early in the season, and it's finally getting to where, at least looking like it's getting to where you want it to be, why would you mess around with that chemistry, barring a major injury, of course?
Right. Communication is a necessity, especially for defensive players. Those guys have to trust one another and trust that each individual will do their particular job. I think right now we see these guys are gelling at the right time, especially going into the meat of our schedule. So, yeah, again, unless it's Patrick Peterson for a third or fourth rounder, no. That's how I look at it. No.
Bob, I got one for you.
Yes, sir.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
last year, yeah.
Okay, I'll give you that. The only defense I would have to that is, where was San Francisco going though, or going to go when they made that deal?
Fair. It's not like you put them over the edge,
right,
as far as a playoff push or anything like that.
But no, you're absolutely. I don't know how how I could be out of my mind and forgetting something so recent. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That was a deal made during the season. And Garoppolo certainly made an impact when he did come into the football game. And so that's so out of the way, being pretty realistic about this. The Saints make any significant little there, but I would be surprised if it was anything.
Here's one.
Shift.
Here's one I didn't realize. Aqib Talib when he was traded to New England.
That's a good point.
Randy Moss.
So the only thing I did, guys, was just show how old I was in bringing up 1983. That's what you're telling me, right?
Oh, well, I'm right there with you, man. So I won't talk about your age.
John, you attack, in addition to covering the Saints, you attack the journalistic angle through Canal Street Chronicles in a little bit different way. I love the way you do it, by the way, being a football historian myself. But you kind of have a series going on. Tell our listeners what kind of series you're running with your articles.
Basically, it's called Life of a Saint, and what I do is I take a former Saint. I actually have one active player that I'm working on finalizing an interview with, but he's been there for a while, so he's got a lot of stories to tell. But I basically take a former Saint and I ask him, about the before, during, and after his football career, and just kind of get the backstory of who he is, what inspired him, who helped him get where he needed to go, what his goals are at this point in his life, what he did after football. So really kind of just create a complete package of who they are as a person, as much as we're as a player. I really don't focus as much on the players as much as, so much as just getting an idea of what they were going through in certain points of their career, but don't really get into the nuts and bolts of, statistics or anything like that. It's more just to kind of figure out who these guys are and what makes them tick.
I like those. That's pretty good, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The guys I've worked with so far, I've worked with Tyrone Hughes, Quinn Early. Just finished up an interview with Alex Molden.
Oh.
And I've got a few more guys that are. It's just a matter of finding the right time, but they've already committed to it. So and a couple of interesting ones too. So it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, I've gone through the site at Canal Street Chronicles. There's so many good guys that cover the 2018 team. If I went and started putting out articles, I think it would just be white noise. And like I said, there's extensive coverage, with that kind of stuff. So to me, it's just I have fun doing what I'm doing, and so far it's been received pretty well. So as long as that continues, and as long as people keep picking up the phone and answering my calls, then I'll continue to go in that direction.
Yeah, that's good. Well, keep up the good work, man. Look, there's some good old players that I had a similar type of thought about doing, like Bob Pollard. He's used to be a friend of my dad, during the day, and he's also the Saints player who's in the Hall of Fame for the Saints. Look, there's some really talented guys, and Alex Molden, wasn't he a first round pick for the Saints at one time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so, I think it was number 11 overall.
Yeah. So those are some good guys. I would love to read that article, man.
Yeah, it's coming. I'm in the process of transcribing everything now. And it's kind of interesting because they're far enough removed from the game where you get somebody like Tyrone Hughes. He'll be very honest about what he thinks about Jim Mora, or Alex Molden has some things to say about Mike Ditka. So they're far enough removed where the filter is gone, and now you can get the real deal about how they felt about certain situations or certain calls, or if they were benched or whatever it might be. So it's pretty interesting, kind of hearing some of those stories.
Yeah, awesome.
And we've had a couple of those guys on here too, and both Kyle and myself have been fortunate enough to get to know some of these guys on a little bit of a personal level, just like you have, John. And Quinn Early, Jolon Dunbar, Tyrone Hughes, Brian Milne, just this tip of the iceberg. And of course, we've had them on this. They had those gentlemen on this show, and you're right. It's really refreshing to hear how honest they are. They do it in a professional way. They're not going to throw anybody under the bus or trash anybody's reputation, and that's what's refreshing too. We're not out to start a war of words or anything like that. We just want your articles touch on this. We just want their honest feelings for what they felt about what they went through at any given stage through their career, and that's what's fun.
Right. Agreed.
As far as what you said before about, if you tried to attack any of the other angles, that it would be white noise. I disagree with you. I think you have a tremendous eye and a sense for football. On one hand, I kind of see what you're saying because, we all know, and John Hendricks has said it on here before, we all know who the prettiest writer at Canal Street Chronicles is.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Privately as well. I love the angles that you approach your articles with. Hopefully this isn't going to be the first time that you'll be gracious enough to join us on Bayou Blitz as well.
No, for sure. Yeah, as long as my kids' lacrosse schedule doesn't interfere, which it seems like I've got a little bit of a gap now before the beginning of November it starts to ramp up again. Unfortunately, the same weekend as Quinn Early's big thing down in Metairie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I won't be able to get down there for that, but it's as long as the schedule allows, I would definitely love to come back on.
Awesome.
Don't let him fool you, ladies and gentlemen. He says kids lacrosse schedule. I asked him 3 times to be on with us over the summer, and he was on vacation every time. So.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure having you on, man.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, always. Tell everybody how they can find you and your work.
Well, you can start at Canal Street Chronicles. I'm sure if you searched Life of a Saint, you'd get the couple articles I've done so far. Or on social media, it's at Saint John Butler, and it's spelled out SAINT John Butler. So, yeah, and I'm pretty much on all the social media platforms.
Well, that he is, folks, and he loves to talk football. Certainly loves his New Orleans Saints, and like I said before, you have such a great perspective, not only for the Saints the way they sit currently, but you appreciate the history of the game and the history of this team as well. So, we certainly thank you for being my friend, and we thank you for being for the work that you do.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate the compliments. Next time you plan to go down to New Orleans, give me a little notice. I'll try and get down there with you.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I've been apologizing to people all day. There was so many people I wanted to see, that Lauren and I wanted to see when we were down there, and we were just so crunched on time. I feel bad, but I promise, folks, it won't be the last time we get together. And, John, you're out in New Jersey, so you're actually closer to me than a lot of the other Saints media is anyway. So we could probably get together.
Get out of the Penn State game or something, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We'll give Mr. Brian Milne a call and get some of the other northern New Orleans Mafia together for a Penn State game. That sounds good.
That would be awesome.
Awesome. Well, good. Thank you for being on with us, John.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kyle. Bob, take care, guys.
All right. You take care.
Thanks.
You got it. Bye-bye.
All right, Mr. Rose, we are wrapping up the show. Any last words for the Bayou Blitz listeners?
Well, again, I wanted to thank everybody that we were able to meet over our weekend in New Orleans. And again, apologize for the folks that we didn't get a chance to see. Some of you I was hoping to run into or planning to run into and get together with at the game. But anybody who's been to a Saints game knows how crazy that Superdome atmosphere can be. So it got out of control a little bit. And Kyle, and I know you feel the same way, and we wanted to thank Block Party for hosting such an outstanding pregame event. At the top of Benson Towers overlooking Champion Square. They had a terrific food layout, great view from the outdoor patio, and I know, at least I think I know, I've been telling people that they're going to do it again for the Rams game. So I'm sure we'll be throwing out details as we know or as we find them out, right?
Yeah, we should be getting word from the representatives, and maybe we could do it a little bit earlier this time. We had a good set of people who participated on Instagram as well as on Facebook, as well as Twitter, who were interested in the tickets. We had winners. Dr. Antoine, she won, and she passed on her tickets to her daughter and her boyfriend, who was a Redskins fan, and he was in town for the weekend. So they enjoyed the setting up there at the rooftop at Benson Tower as well. So guys, gotta take advantage of it. I mean, these are some very, very nice tickets. You have free food, free drink, just free time to be able to look down on Champion Square, not in the midst of everybody, but you can be able to enjoy the festivities from above. So be on the lookout for the next giveaway that we will have from Block Party.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, they hosted a fantastic event. We couldn't stay as long as what we would have liked to, because we wanted to take a walk through the Saints Hall of Fame too before the game. But I could have spent hours up there. It was a great atmosphere. Other than that, Kyle, Saints fans, as you know, we're coming into a bye week. So it will give our players and our heroes a chance to rest up a little bit. But we will not be resting. I know yourself, Barry Hurstis, through the Saints News Network, and John Hendricks, John Butler, myself, and Deuce Wyndham and Chris Donalds, and all of us at Canal Street Chronicles. We're going to be approaching our New Orleans Saints from different angles in this bye week, so stay tuned for that. We're going to be trying to preview what we'll see the last 2/3 of this season, rather. So we're gonna continue to be busy, and you folks in our Bayou Blitz social media group, our Bayou Blitz Facebook group, again, we love you. and we thank you for your support that you've given us. Keep up the great work, but we're greedy, and we want more. So we want to hear from you what kind of ideas you have for our show or articles, or people that are in the group that aren't necessarily involved. Folks, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to give us your viewpoints. That's what we're all here for, and we're one big family, and I think it feels like it.
Yeah, definitely. Very well-ran group, very well-engaged audience, a very knowledgeable audience. That's another thing I really appreciate from our Bayou Blitz followers. All right, Bob, tell the people how they can be able to follow you on social media as well as with your writings.
And again, the easiest place to find all of us is through the Bayou Blitz Facebook page. We're growing. All you need to do is send a membership request, and I promise you, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan or a supporter of the Bayou Blitz show, you will be accepted with open arms into the family. Other than that, my work, my articles can be followed through Canal Street Chronicles, which has a Facebook page, and also a Twitter at SaintsCSC. Or you can hunt me down personally, either up here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania personally, or through social media. It can be found on Facebook, Bob Rose, or Twitter at BobbyR2613. And please, if you're not already a member of the circle, please shoot me a request. I love how all of us are growing together as a family. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I hope you all are too.
Yeah, definitely. And Bob, and please extend to Lauren my disappointment I wasn't able to meet with you guys. I had a funeral to attend, but I was able to attend the game. But all in all, it was a great weekend to be able to send home my godfather, Alfred Green. Mm-hmm. But I tell you one thing, man, Saints fans, and I said this last week, appreciate the fact that we have Drew BREES. You have to appreciate this. I don't know if, and I heard Bob Papa and those guys on the Sirius XM radio program this morning talking about this. You don't know. And Brady Quinn said this as well, Notre Dame quarterback and NFL player for the Panthers. Mm-hmm. You don't know if you're ever going to see something like this for another 20 years in the NFL, to be honest. Yeah. And what Drew BREES has been able to accomplish, and we've got to also look at the numbers. Passing rate is up in the league. The yardage rates are up total for offense. More touchdowns are being scored more than ever in this league. And it has a lot to do with some of the, rules that are in play that's favorable for offense, right, Bob? But what we still have is someone who completes his passes at a high rate. That means he has good receivers. That means he has a good offensive plan. He has a great coach that helps him to be able to put them in the situation to be able to make plays and to be able to score and to be able to utilize the talents that they have. You have in Drew BREES, and what you're witnessing is a Hall of Fame player. And if you don't appreciate that, I'm sad for you. I know you may not like him as a person or whatever, and you heard a lot of these ex-NFL guys still are not recognizing what they're seeing as a whole, but you as a Saints fan recognize it, appreciate it, and embrace it. That's the best thing I could say to you at this time, because I know I went through a lot of mediocre teams in my lifetime. I had my old Saints helmet and uniform and my Archie Manning number 8 uniform when I was a young boy, Bob, and I cried many a day, Sunday watching the team from Tulane Stadium to the Superdome go down in flames. So I'm appreciating what I see, and I was so fortunate to witness what eyewitness with him breaking the record on Monday night. All right, guys, don't forget, you can follow us at saintspodcast.com. You can listen to all of our podcasts there, or you can go to Spreaker.com and just type in Saints News, and you'll find the Bayou Blitz as well as the other podcasts like the Butler's Pantry with Brendan Boylan, and we may have a special podcast this off week with myself as well as the old Saints News crew. We may get together and just do a little something and pick those guys' brains for what they have witnessed the first 5 games of the season thus far with Remy Jones and Diva. That should be pretty interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah. So those guys, I know they've been saying they haven't had their Wednesdays like they used to, so we'll see what we can do. But also, don't forget to follow Barry Hurst's on www.saintsnewsnetwork.com, as well as you can see some little snippets from me here and there with some videos I post on saintsnews.net. All right, this is Kyle T. Network with my man Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. Bob, have a good one. Tell Will I say good night. Tell Lauren I say good night. Good night to you, Who Dat Nation. And please continue to pray for our family and friends in Florida, Georgia, and part of the Carolinas. They're going to be hit through the Hurricane Michael, and already witnessed that. I think they have one loss of life that has been accounted for thus far, but the devastation is tremendous. So let's pray for them, because we know we went through similar things here in the city of New Orleans. Okay? All right. Bob, have a good night. Talk to you later.
Take care.